song is really tells you something about the way how difficult birth was in the 16th century. It's the death of Queen Jane of England. And Queen Jane was Henry VIII's third wife and most favoured wife, because she actually bore him a son. But in the process, she died because she had to be cut open to get the baby out. You do it differently probably today. So it's a very jolly song to begin with.
Since nobody cares for me.
sister, parent, wife. I would not change my station for any other in life, nor lawyer, surgeon, doctor had e'er groaned for me. I can for nobody know what since nobody cares for me. Thus, like the merry miller free, let us rejoice and sing. The days of youth are made for glee, and time is on the wing. This song shall pass from me to you along this jovial ring. Let heart and voice and all agree to say, long live the King. Good. So the first song is really from the period of King Henry VIII. The second song is a folk song from about 1700, and it's about a miller on the River Dee in Chester, which was a very rich mercantile town, actually a Roman foundation in the west of England. The millers were very rich, and they had a reputation of cheating. They used to cheat when you went to have when you bought your flour, by a thumb would be just hanging on the side of the weight, you see, to add a little bit of, or rather on the side of the flour, so the flour seemed a little heavier than it really was. So he charged you a little bit more. Now it's interesting how these sort of songs, these sort of thoughts actually get into folk song. Because particularly in England, English folk song is really all about narrative. And in the 19th century and the 20th century, when composers in England were looking for their own identity again, rather than just playing German music and writing in the German style, they went back to folk music to find Englishness. And it's very unlike most continental music, because it has this melodic nature, but it also has a very strong narrative. What are you going to play?
Oh, thank you. So, thank you, Richard. I'm playing an instrument, which is the viola da gamba. Actually, this instrument was developed during the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th century, and beginning of the 18th century. Well, this is not a typical viola da gamba from England, because normally English instruments, they have 6 strings. This is a French model from the late 17th century. And the viola da gamba was a typical instrument that you could find in the houses. Welcome, welcome. And this was like the instrument that after dinner or meeting with friends, like with Richard, you could just take the instrument and take some wine and then play, and then you have the musical evening. And this was the most typical instrument in Europe during the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. This is like nowadays we can say that the guitar, like we have a home guitar. It was the instrument that was either amateur instrument that someone could play at home, or either was instrument that during the 17th and 18th century in France was like the instrument which was played by the king. Okay, and the music we are playing tonight, of course, this is everything English. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the viola, the ensemble of violas was very, very common in English churches right until the end of the 19th century, when industrialization and mechanization and organs became economical even for quite small churches. And the thing about viola players was Sunday morning was always rather difficult. The priests never quite knew what state the viola players would be in because of Saturday night. And if there were country if it was a country church, you could be pretty sure that the farm labourers who would be playing the violas on Sunday morning would have been in the tavern until pretty late. And there's a lot of literature about this, a marvellous novel by Thomas Hardy called Under the Greenwood Tree, which is all about this conflict between the vicar who wants to get rid of the viola players and bring in an organ, and the villagers who want to keep the viola players, because there are a lot of them and they all have, you know, strong connections in the village. In the end, industrialization takes the upper hand.
Yeah, that's very funny, the story of viola da gamba.
It's true though.
In England, it was like the instrument that the soldiers, especially the commanders, it was like obligatory to play the viola da gamba, because for the soldiers, especially for the officers, the way to keep the whole army, it was like when you play in orchestra, you have a leader, and the leader needs to conduct. So normally, between the exercises, like the army exercises in the evening, the commander was saying, you and you come with me, and they were playing concert music, and actually they were playing music in a table, like we are playing now. It was a square table, and each of them, it was like one big piece of music, and it was like, we call it the consort music, in which you have bass instrument, tenor, alto, and soprano instrument. So this was like the main, how to explain it?
Ensemble, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was like part of the discipline to play. And then the commander was saying, no, you are going so fast, now let's improvise on this. And they were playing a table, even the music. You could find music in England, this music for table, and you can see the notes. One note here, one note here, one note here, and one note here. So it was a good note, and then changing, and then the next piece.
Really?
Yeah, it was very interesting. One other thing about the payment for musicians in England. Musicians in this time, 16th, 15th, 16th century, they were not earning money. They were not getting all money. They were getting some products. Yes?
We're going back that way now.
String. That's right. And especially they got wine. And the conductors didn't like that the musicians got wine, because for the rehearsals after one evening they came very drunk. So they tried to give less wine to the musicians in order that they could keep concentrated in the performance.
Tonight you'll get a picture for listening.
So the next piece I'm going to play is from Christopher Simpson. This composer was actually a soldier. And this composer, musician, used to work in the army, in the big ships. So it's well known that when he was on the ships, during his free time, he was just in the seaside and he was just playing viola da gamba for people, or some other officers were playing with him. So this is just improvisation, written improvisation from one ground. Ground is like a loop, long bass pattern, and over this is going to be some patterns improvised.
I fell from the garden to thy brow. Oh, don't deceive me, oh, never leave me. How could you use a poor maiden's soul? Remember the vows that you made to your Mary. Remember the vow when you vowed to be true. Oh, don't deceive me, oh, never leave me. How could you use a poor maiden's soul? Thus rang the poor maiden, her sorrows bewailing. Thus sang the poor maiden in the valley below. Oh, don't deceive me, oh, never leave me. How could you use a poor maiden's soul? That is about a young man who promised to be true. But even though she made him garlands for his hair and cut roses, he had other things to do.
Yeah.
No, you play or am I singing?
No, we sing. I mean, you sing and play.
Oh,
Yes?
yeah. In Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty, I first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone, as she wheeled her wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, singing cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, singing cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. She was a fishmonger, but short was no wonder, for so were her father and mother before. And they wheeled their wheelbarrows through streets broad and narrow, singing cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, singing cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. She died of a fever, and no one could save her, and that was the end of sweet Molly Malone. And her ghost wheels her barrow through streets broad and narrow, singing cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, singing cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Really finished.
So our next piece is gonna be a solo piece for viola da gamba, and the missing for viola da gamba composers. Let's say Richard was explaining to me that in England, the viola da gamba preserved until the 19th century.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite strange. For me, I never heard this story because as I was studying, viola da gamba, let's say that's a very popular instrument, finished with the French Revolution.
You see, there's something that's quite important to remember. England preserved music in churches all through the 19th century into the 20th century, and hymn singing was a fundamental part of Protestant worship and evangelism. People love singing. And if you go to America now and see the Pentecostal churches, which are so powerful, it's this mass singing that people are addicted to, actually. So that's why the viola kept playing, because there was an alternative. Then the organ comes along. Wow, we don't have drunken players anymore.
Okay, this is from Carfrey Abel, who was playing in England, who was working in England. This composer is part of the latest, let's say the last part of the fashion of viola da gamba. This is actually not Baroque music, this is more like Baroque music. It's a transition between the Baroque music and the classical. It was a very short time. So this composer was very well known as a virtuoso. So he composed a lot of many small pieces, so I'm just playing some small introduction and we continue with Richard singing.
this last song is called Blow Away the Morning Dew, and it's from a play. It's actually written in 1609, but it was used in a slightly later play, called The Baffled Knight. And this is a story about a knight who sees a pretty girl, and he thinks that she is willing to do what he wants to do with her. And he takes her, she takes him to her big house on the hill, so he's even more excited, there's money in it, and closes the door in his face. Unfortunately, the action isn't in the song, it's on the stage, but the song's a nice song. It's a very traditional English folk song, very common in the early 17th century, widely sung. Blow away the morning dew. I mean, you know, what the hell? Okay, she's done this to me, she's closed the door in my face, what are you supposed to do about it? But I don't quite understand why she did it, because I'm such a desirable character. Upon the sweetest summertime, in the middle of the morn, a pretty damsel I espied, the fairest ever born, and she blow away the morning dew, the dew and the dew, blow away the morning dew, how sweet the winds do blow. She gathered up her lovely flowers and spent her time in sport, as if in pretty Cupid's bowers she daily did report, and sing blow away the morning dew, the dew and the dew, blow away the morning dew, how sweet the winds do blow. The yellow cowslip by the brim, and the daffodil as well, the timid primrose pale and trim, the pretty snowdrop bell, and sing blow away the morning dew, the dew and the dew, blow away the morning dew, how sweet the winds do blow. She's gone with all those flowers sweet, of white and red and blue, and unto me about my feet is only left the room, and sing blow away the morning dew, the dew and the dew, blow away the morning dew, how sweet the winds do blow.